What's up guys, Shawnthebro here, and in today's episode of the fighting game tutorial series, we are going to be going over settings menu, tabs and improvements part 3. So in this episode, we are going to actually be able to exit our settings menu, and we will be able to go over to the controls menu as well, just using keyboard or gamepad inputs. So up to this point in the series, we had our settings menu, and then previously I've been reworking it so it works off of a widget switcher and tabs, keeping all the old logic that we implemented in earlier episodes. And right now, the only thing we can't do is exit, because when we try and exit, first of all, it doesn't really remove the right widget. It removes the child widget that is in the widget switcher. And second of all, both the gameplay and the controls widgets are listening for these inputs at the same time. Now, before we hop into this episode, if you want to get caught up in the entire series so you can see how we've done things like hitboxes, throws, and super moves in our game, I'll link you to this playlist right here in the top right corner, which is the entire fighting game tutorial series, so you can see how we've done all that and a lot more. Alternatively, if you just care about settings menus, I do recommend you watch the previous episodes of the settings screen, because they're all building on top of each other to get the perfect menu for our game. With that out of the way, we can go ahead and get started. This is a code and blueprint tutorial series, but we're going to be doing everything in the blueprints today, because we're just working with our widget. So first things first, we should open up our widgets. We are definitely going to need settings screen and gameplay settings. We're also going to want our change control screen for at least one thing today as well. So for me, these are in menus. I have settings screen, gameplay settings, and then my change control screen is actually in the HUD. I don't want it to be in there, so I am going to move it. I'm going to move change controls from HUD into menus. Manually do it by dragging like I did, and it should work perfectly fine. Unreal's pretty good about keeping all your references. So change control screen is no longer in HUD. They are all in menus where they should be. The next thing that I want to do is actually go into my gameplay settings. So this is the gameplay section or gameplay tab in our settings screen. So all the stuff under this tab here. And this widget had some behavior in it. To return to the main menu, this creator widget reference was being set to our main menu screen, and tell the main menu that the settings menu was no longer open whenever we were trying to exit or press the back button. However, since this is part of the widget switcher now, it doesn't really work as well as it did when it was just on the settings screen. So we're going to update this logic, because everything we have here is not going to be specific to these children tab widgets. It is going to be for the overall settings screen. But everything here with the music volume slider and the sound effect volume slider is specific to the gameplay settings. So what we can do is actually take the logic in this function, port it back to settings screen, and leave everything else in here. That way, anytime settings screen knows that we are trying to exit out of it, this logic will occur, which we want it to, but before that, it will not. And to do this, we can make a very simple change. So first of all, let's go ahead and copy these nodes out of the gameplay settings. So we have our creator widget reference, we're checking if it's valid, and then we're setting is settings menu open to false on the main menu, because we're assuming we exited from the settings screen. And then we resume listening for the confirm button on the main menu screen. This was allowing us to not go into other menus on the main menu when the settings menu was open. And we were playing a sound effect and removing the settings menu from the parent. I want to take all these nodes, I'm going to cut them, and I'm going to go back to my settings screen, and I'm going to paste them in here for now. We don't need to connect this right now. I'll explain why in a few minutes when we get into this, but right now just make sure we have it in the settings screen, because we are going to be using it. Now let's go back to gameplay settings, and I want to scroll down to my variables, and I want to go to my creator widget reference. This is a variable that is storing the previous widget, the widget that created this widget. So if it's the main menu, it's going to be our main menu screen. Now we were assuming the settings menu was only ever open from the main menu screen. And I mentioned that that was not really good, because if we want to be able to open it from somewhere like the pause menu, we should be able to do so. However, since these gameplay settings and the change control screen settings are tabs of the settings menu, I do intend for them to always remain part of the settings menu. And because of that, I actually want the creator widget reference to be the settings screen. Think about it, the settings screen has a widget switcher now, which is this settings widget switcher right here. And so the settings screen is creating these child widgets. So I want to change the creator widget reference on all the children of the settings, so my gameplay settings and my change control screen, from main menu screen type to be settings screen type. It's not in use anymore in these children because I've moved it to the settings screen, so you won't get any errors or any updates. If you want, you can actually rename it now because I don't think creator widget reference is really required. This can just be settings reference. We're making the assumption that it's always going to be coming from the settings screen. If you think you want to have your gameplay settings or your change control screen settings in a different spot, and it's not always going to be children of your settings, you can leave it as creator widget reference and just make this a standard widget type. So widget object reference. So you have that as an option as well. So change control screen to, I have creator widget reference. I'm going to rename it to settings reference. So in here we have event construct, and we were doing the same logic in this P1 back as well. Well, good news, we don't need to do any of this in here anymore. We already copied this over to the settings screen. So I can go ahead and remove everything that was in P1 back for the change control screen, compile and save. And now we can change our type of settings reference to our settings screen object reference. Now we can compile and save. That's been updated appropriately. Now we can compile and save our settings screen, and we're going to have a few issues because we were manually setting these variables at the end of event construct in the settings screen. We were just passing the settings screen creator widget reference, which was set to the main menu, along to these children, but the children no longer care about the main menu. They only care about their direct parent, which is the settings screen. So these nodes where we were setting it on the gameplay settings and the change control screen aren't going to be the same anymore. Instead, what we should do is remove the creator widget reference nodes here, and we still want to set the settings reference from the parent, but simply we are just going to set them to self because we are in the settings screen. This is the parent widget. It's not required that you do this. You could just get the parent from the children, but I think this way is a little bit easier to understand what's going on. You don't have to worry about hard coding things either or casting to certain types. We already know that our parent is going to be the settings. So there we go. Now this section is cleaned up, and now the children know that their parent is the settings menu. So what we want to do is go into our gameplay settings. This is our child of the settings screen, and now we have our settings reference. We can get this and right click and convert it to a validated get. So as long as this was set correctly, when we are pressing either the back button on the screen or pressing B or whatever the equivalent is to exit out of the menu, we can then call up to our settings reference. Then we could do all the logic that is generic between the settings children. So if we go into our settings screen now, we want to use this logic that we have here. You could hook up P1 back and it would just work without calling up to the parent. However, I want to be sure that the order of operations here is that anything the children need to do when backing out of it is saved and finished. Then the parent logic occurs. So to be absolutely certain, I'm not using P1 back here. Instead, I'm going to make a new event. And because of that, I'm also going to remove my listen for input action and P1 back events that are in my parent settings screen here, just so we don't get confused and accidentally use it later on. So I'm going to connect my event construct the whole way through. I'm going to take these nodes that we removed from the children, and I will bring them down to their own little section here. And I'm going to make a new event, add custom event, and we're going to say exit settings. We plug it into these nodes here. Right above this, I have my left and right category selector buttons. The way this worked before, we didn't have a widget switcher, so when we were switching between our categories, we were creating the widget. So in this case, I was creating the change control screen widget. And then I was setting the creator widget reference on it, adding it to the viewport, and removing it from the parent. Quite frankly, none of this needs to happen anymore. We already have the widget on the parent. It's in our widget switcher. So all of this logic is outdated and should be removed. So I'm going to do that while I'm in here too. I'm going to keep these on pressed because we are going to be using them to switch between the widget switcher values, but we don't need to create a new one every time or anything like that. So getting rid of those. Now this widget compiles and we have our back logic in here. We want to go back to our children, so gameplay settings. And in this section, we got our settings reference, made sure it was valid. If it's valid, we want to call exit settings now. So then we can call exit settings, and we're going to do all of our back logic for the child, and then we are going to exit the actual settings screen as well. Wonderful. Now if we go to our change control screen, we're going to want to do the same thing here in our listen for input action P1 back, because just like in the gameplay settings, we had our back button to exit out, and we should have the mouse input as well on press back button. So let's go ahead and add that. So in change control screen, go to my design view. We don't have a back button, but I want our menus to be equivalent here. So I take my back button from my settings screen and I'm going to copy it, Control C, and then I'm going to go to my canvas panel here and paste it, or Control V. And I'll take the exact position as well. So position X is 20, Y is 950. So we go here, we put 20, 950. Compile and save, and then I'm going to click on my back button and add my on pressed. Then I'll take this event and put it up by P1 back, just like we were doing before. And now we want to do the same logic for each of these. So we want a reroute node. Specifically, we want to get our settings reference, convert it to a validated get, plug everything into it just like before, and then we can drag off of settings reference and call exit settings. Now we can compile and save. Now we're ready to test this, but we are going to get one more error or warning. So let's go ahead and play. We have an error in side scroller character. Side scroller character is our default character when we made this template. It is not our base fighter character BP. This is our standard character from the template itself. We don't use this anymore. So these errors we're getting, we can actually flat out remove. We could actually remove all the logic in here if you want, and I'm going to do that. So I'm going to hit Control A and delete it. Then I'll compile and save, and it will compile. You could delete that character as well if you want, but for now it's not necessary. I just want to make sure it is compiling. Now we can play. Come into our settings menu, go down to our back button, and we will exit out of it. You're going to see this little pop-up here that says press any input. This is from our change control screen. This is actually just occurring because I'm pressing the confirm button to escape out of the gameplay settings menu. Only the widget that is active in the widget switcher should be listening for input actions. The change control screen allows us to press one of the inputs or one of the mappings and then modify that control, which pops up this menu. So since both widgets are listening for that input, this menu pops up by default when we're trying to exit out of the menu. So this, along with switching our tabs, will be what we cover in the next episode. So now we have a fully functional settings screen. We have to improve our change control screen so that we can utilize it just like every other menu and widget that we have in our game, but otherwise we are good to go. If this video helped you improve your settings screen and add a widget switcher, then please subscribe. It does more for myself than anything else you can do, and I really appreciate it. I want to give a huge shout out to my YouTube membership, Patreon, and Discord subscribers. You guys are amazing. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much. If you ran into any problems making your settings screen or editing your settings screen, feel free to join the Discord community. I would be happy to help you out, and the support is completely free. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Shawnthebro, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye, guys.